Hey everybody, welcome to New Slang. I am your host Thomas Mooney, and this is episode 90. We start out the week with a conversation with Christian Wallace, an associate editor and writer over at Texas Monthly. He is definitely one of the best writers and storytellers I know. Like myself, Christian grew up in far west Texas, Andrews, Texas to be exact, and that upbringing has really informed the stories he's told, especially over the past couple of years. Last year, he had a massive cover story about the Permian Basin oil field for Texas Monthly, and that eventually led to a podcast you may be familiar with. It's called Boomtown. Originally, it was an 11-chapter season, but recently there was a 12th chapter added in late April. It addresses the free fall of oil prices and the story of the year and probably of the decade, the coronavirus pandemic. In general, Boomtown has been a fascinating examination of that world, and of course, as a West Texas native, it's both incredibly familiar and eye-opening at the same time. If y'all haven't checked out Boomtown just yet, I highly encourage you to do so. As I mentioned, it currently sits at 12 chapters. Most episodes are in that 45-minute range. It'll take you about 9 hours to hear. I'm sure Boomtown will be in some sense to Christian what Juarez is to Terry Allen, that story that he just continues to return to year after year. So the main reason I asked Christian to be on here was the stellar project he was a part of over at Texas Monthly. About a month ago, Texas Monthly wrote and ranked the Willie Nelson catalog. Willie turned 87 this year, and it's about as fitting a birthday celebration as you can think of. Just writing over those 143 records would be impressive enough. For the sake of credit, David Courtney, Michael Hall, Rich Kinzel, Max Marshall, Joe Nick Patowski, who wrote what is probably considered the definitive Willie Nelson biography, Willie Nelson, An Epic Life. John Spong and of course Christian Wallace worked on this project. It's an incredibly rich and detailed examination of Willie Nelson's career and catalog. Coming out of all this, the reading of that, and of course kind of coming up with your own rankings and listening to all these records, and of course talking with Christian, what I'd say about Willie is that he obviously is Texas personified. Is there a better representation of what Texas is than Willie Nelson? Probably not. But also at the same time, he seems to be so much more than that. I almost kind of consider Willie Nelson to be a walking contradiction of sorts. He set the new standard at some point during his career, but then he was also always the exception to those new rules, if you will. And whoever else's ideas of what was, is, and will be country and American music. He'd be the asterisk to whatever definition, while also absolutely being what that definition was based on. Anyway, I figured it would be an excellent time to talk about that ranking, Willie Nelson, West Texas, Boomtown, and of course we touch on one of our favorites, the aforementioned Terry Allen too. I hope you all enjoy it. I know I did. As always, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at _newslang. Go give New Slang a like on Facebook, share, subscribe, and be sure to check out Boomtown as well. I'll throw a link to that in the show notes, as well as the Willie Nelson album rankings. Okay, here is Christian Wallace.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and start right there. Obviously, like the Boomtown, it initially started as the cover piece on, or cover article in Texas Monthly. Did you always have it like in your head, like, hey, let's transition this into a podcast, or was that something that came a little bit after the actual article?
Yeah, so whenever I went out there to report, like my first reporting trip was, I think, October 2018, and the article came out in June 2019. And whenever I went out there, I definitely I had never even considered doing a podcast, to be honest. It just wasn't something really in my horizon. And I guess it was in January 2019, we have a really great producer, audio kind of like Swiss Army knife. His name is Brian Standifer at Texas Monthly, and he's, done everything from played cello in the Panhandle Mystery Band with Terry Allen. He composed the score for Boomtown, and he was also the producer of the podcast. And it was January 2019, and he was like, well, have you thought about doing a podcast about this story? And so him and I kind of brainstormed what different episodes might look like, different topics we'd cover. And then it kind of took off from there. And I really started reporting on the podcast part in June 2019. And then it started coming out, I guess, in December of last year.
Yeah. That of course, like you go into, what I love so much about it is that it feels like a genuine West Texas experience. You obviously know West Texas, and I think like it's so important that you go into all these different little, I guess like little pockets of what West Texas is. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like there's like the episode where you cover like Friday Night Lights stuff, and I don't know. I think like it's just really important that you didn't just focus on like one aspect of what this oil boom is in West Texas, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like both playing to the myths of West Texas and trying to tear some of that stereotype down. Because, I mean, you're from Fort Stockton, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we used to play y'all in football, and like Friday Night Lights is a part of that culture. I mean, it's like to like downplay it is also doing a disservice, but you know, to not give things like cowboys and ranching and football and roughnecking, like to not give those things their proper due is also doing it a disservice. So, you know, I don't know how well we succeeded on all of those fronts, but it was definitely a goal to both shine a light on how, you know, how many different pockets, as you put it, of West Texas there are and how vibrant these different pockets are. Also show the genuineness behind some of those things. You know, the generations of men and women that work in the patch, that play football for these high school teams and ranch together, like that's all real. And so I wanted to show that in a way that, to me, it is badass. You know, like I do think that the fact that there's still people that get up in the morning and go move their herds of cattle and do their own branding and all that. Like, I think that there's like a nobility to that I wanted to capture, but also try to do it in a way that wasn't, you know, I'm sure you're pretty accustomed to this too. People love the myth of West Texas, but then when they go to kind of replicate it, it comes out just kind of one-dimensional and just kind of not, it doesn't feel authentic. So I tried my best to just find the people that would suit the narrative, but were also the real deal, you know?
Right. When I say I'm from Fort Stockton to someone, it's one of two things. It's either the romanticism, like, oh man, you're from West Texas, or it's the, oh man, you're from West Texas. And I feel like, I don't know, like you especially hear it from about the Permian Basin, especially Odessa, about how horrible Odessa is. And yeah, there's some definite drawbacks to Odessa. But at the same time, I'm like, it's not nearly as bad. It's not Mad Max out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Did you come up across how much of it was you trying to also break down those kind of stereotypes?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had the same experience as you, as far as like whenever people ask where you're from, well, I'm from Andrews. Once I, you know, finally orient them, we're just north of Midland, Odessa. They're like, oh, and like you said, it's kind of either like, oh shit, West Texas, I've got a Big Ben sticker on my car, or it's like, oh God, the armpit of Texas, huh? And so it's kind of like, well, it's kind of neither one of those things, because, you know, we're like 4 hours from Big Bend. Mm-hmm. So that's not really applicable. And as far as, you know, odors go, maybe we are the armpit of Texas. at least sometimes, at least the rotten eggs of Texas. But there is so much there that I find pretty desirable in a lot of ways. Even like a certain level of beauty that's out there. It's the kind that you have to sit a while with. You have to like be patient to see it. But, as people jet through West Texas, or at least that part of West Texas, to go to the mountains in New Mexico or Colorado, or head back east towards Austin, they don't see what all is out there. Like, it takes a second to kind of appreciate, I think. Like, if you go camp out somewhere in the desert out there, you're going to see cottontail and roadrunners and quail and all sorts of like critters and coyotes and mule deer, and the sunsets and the sunrises, as it's cliche, but it's true. It's like, that's almost a gift you get nearly every day out there. And honestly, like, I live in San Marcos now and in the hill country, and I still haven't adjusted after years of being here to, in the nights during the spring and summer, like, the days are boiling hot in West Texas, but at night you have that cool breeze come through, and there's like it's just clean. And here in San Marcos, it's like, at the end of a hot day, it's still swampy at night. Like, it's still like this closeness, this moisture that I've never fully adjusted to. And there's so many nights, as much as I love San Marcos and the river here, there's many a night, especially when it gets hot, that I just wish I was on my granny's porch in West Texas, having that breeze and that coolness that, I don't know, it's one of the best feelings. So, to answer your question, I think I got a little sidetracked, but places like Odessa, oh man, like it has both earned its reputation, and it's probably a little bit, it's not, I don't know how to put this. Like, there's parts of it that are just as bad as people say, and there are parts that are unexpectedly great. And I think it just kind of depends on where you're looking. And people tend to look at the same spot over and over again. And so hopefully, like Shauna Granado was one of the people on the podcast. She was a woman that's born and bred in Odessa, and she owned a cafe outside of town in a little bitty place called Goldsmith. Yeah. And she's a great example of just not who I think a lot of people would hold in their head as a person from Odessa. Like, she's creative, she's funny as hell, and just like a great all-around person, the type of person that you want to have 5 margaritas with and ahuas. So I hope that maybe we brought to light some of those things, while also kind of touching on, well, if you want to go to a honky tonk where it's still full of smoke and there's still you can find trouble pretty quickly, then Odessa will still provide. So there's that part of it too.
Yeah. You mentioned the coolness of night. West Texas is one of those places where, like, you really do feel like every day is an individual day. It's like you turn the page with that coolness that comes in. I guess, like, with Odessa, I feel like you're around my same age, so I remember, like, we would always go on field trips to Odessa. That was the place of culture, like, if you passed the TOS test or the tax test, you went and you could go ice skating at the Music City Mall. Did you guys do any of that growing up?
Oh, dude. So Andrews, we had a little bitty grocery store, still do. It's called Porter's Thriftway. There's a few of them around West Texas.
Alpine.
But my family, it was too expensive. So we would drive 30 minutes to go to Odessa to go grocery shopping. And if we wanted to go see a movie, we would drive to Odessa to see a movie. And I mean, going to Odessa was just like what we did, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely did that. And you mentioned ice skating at is it what's it called? That mall there in Odessa.
I know for a long time it was called the Music City Mall.
Music City Mall, MCM, yep. Well, me and my brothers, we used to, like, while my mom was shopping, we would make signs before we went in, like 1 through 10, and we would sit around, like, you know, where the food court was.
Mm-hmm.
And when people would bust their ass on the ice, we would hold up like numbers rating their falls, which is probably a huge asshole thing to do. But I mean, that's the type of like entertainment we would find in Odessa back in the day.
Yeah. What's strange is to think about how the lack of that top layer of culture in Odessa in reality. Like, you would go to the mall, you would go to, you know, the big Walmart, Sam's, whatever, Hastings, to get that top layer of culture that you thought was in every city. And it was just like a wealth, right? But looking back now, you realize, like, oh man, there's like so much missing too at the same time. It's I don't know, it's funny and strange how once you go out past West Texas, once you get out of that bubble, you realize like how much you've missed growing up.
Yeah, I am kind of constantly amazed by the things that are very normal to me, that I come across things like to this day. I'm 31 years old now, and I still come across things where I'm like, wait, that was a very strange aspect of my growing up in West Texas, specifically in the oil patch. And then there's other things that I'm still like. I was a freshman in college, and I was at my first kind of fancy banquet dinner thing, and the dean of the honors college was sitting at my table with me, and they served us our food, and I was like looking at it, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. And it was an artichoke and an eggplant, and I had never seen either one of those in West Texas growing up. So there are these things that you just like abruptly come across every once in a while that goes either way. Like, oh, these are things that were completely normal to us that we did, like driving to the county line to buy beer. And then there's other things that we were completely like ignorant of that, you know, most of America, polite society is like, you don't know what an artichoke is. So yeah,
Those weren't on
it is kind of a funny thing, but it's one that honestly, I've just, for the most part, I just kind of have tried to embrace it because it is where I'm from and it's given me the perspective I have. And honestly, I don't know about you, but it's something that I'm pretty proud of, all things considered, even though there are definitely aspects of the region that don't make me so proud. But
right. You know, what I was going to say is, you know, they didn't have artichoke or eggplant on the K-Bob's salad bar. So,
right.
You know, it was not a...
they had pea salad. They had broccoli. You know, they had every type of black-eyed pea salad, but they didn't have any eggplant.
I remember, like, I guess Fort Stockton still has a K-Bob's. I remember you guys had one because we would eat there during... like football and basketball games and stuff like that. But, you know, the one of the weird things is, so Andrews that's a dry county. What county is Andrews? Is it
Andrews County?
Okay.
Yep.
Is that a dry county still?
It was until 2013. And I got to vote to make that sucker damp.
Yeah.
Because you still can't buy liquor. It's just beer and wine.
Okay.
And I think at the restaurants they can serve like mixed drinks, but you can't buy a bottle of whiskey in Andrews County still. But it's definitely better than it was.
Yeah, because that is something that I didn't realize until growing up or moving up here to Lubbock. Is when I first moved here, it was a dry county, and it was like I guess they don't sell beer inside the grocery store. and then you realize where you have to go, and of course that we're wet now, but that also feels like such a long time ago that was past. But I don't know, like growing up in Fort Stockton, it was just obviously still there, So it was, I don't know where I'm going.
It was Fort Stockton wet?
Yeah.
Or dry?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was wet. Yeah. So like that's one of those things where I didn't realize like there was places in the Panhandle that were like that, and there still are some dry counties up around here. So I don't know. It's I wanted to go back on you mentioned Goldsmith. What's interesting to me still about West Texas is these little tiny small towns, these little communities out there that even if you lived in West Texas your whole life, you're still like, there's still places that you've not ever been. I've only been through Goldsmith a handful of times, and that was because I was driving back from Lubbock to Fort Stockton and decided to take that route once or twice. You know what I mean? Are there still towns like that for you out here?
Man, I've long had a like pretty deep fascination with just whenever I worked in the patch, especially I mean, if I had a chance to kind of like stop while I was like hot shotting parts to a different rig, I would stop in these little cafes. That's how I found out about the Pioneer Cafe in Goldsmith, and just try to soak as much up as I could, whether that's in, a place like Brownfield's not super small, but I love that drive-in that's there. There's a place in Pyote, which I'm guessing you've at least been through Pyote.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little honky tonk there called the Hideaway, just a little cinder block building. And anytime I can, I like to just stop whenever I'm driving between Pecos and Odessa and have a beer in the Hideaway, because the characters in there are just, they really are from another time, it feels like. And they're just themselves, One time I was in there actually reporting on Boomtown, and it's like a Saturday afternoon, college football on the TV, the bartender making herself some ramen noodles in the microwave, two old farmers at the end of the bar just, shooting the shit until one of their wives called on the bar's phone and said, "Hey, get your ass home." And, you're just down the road from Wink right there. And I swear to God, like the jukebox was playing and Only the Lonely came on, Roy Orbison. And it was one of those moments that I was like, I am exactly where I want to be in the universe. And I try to seek out those tiny little West Texas towns because they're a gift. If you go out to around Rankin and McCamey, that area, kind of the southeastern part of the Permian Basin, there's a little bitty place. I mean, when I say it's little, there's not even a town there. It's just, I think there's maybe a post office and that's it. It's a place called Gervin. There's this old bar called McKee's Bar, and it's got wooden floors that are like basically falling in. It's just like this old shack, and an old woman and an old man run it, and they just, fish beers out of coolers, and it's just the local cowboys that go there for the most part. And you can just go in there and just spend an hour talking about just swapping stories with these old cowboys that are playing cards and cracking open coolers. And I mean, for me, that it honestly doesn't get much better than that. So I was really, honestly, that was one of the funnest part about working on Boomtown, was just, I had like permission, and it was kind of my job to go around just talking to people and kind of sniffing out these different places all over. Cayenosa is another one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've probably been through all these places, I'm sure, but
yeah, well, like Cayenosa and Gervin are both in Pecos County, so which is Fort Stockton. So like Pecos County as you know, is freaking huge. So like that's why there's so many little, not even like towns, like you said. Like there's not even considered. I don't know what they're called technically, like uncorporated communities or some shit like that. I know Kayanosa and like there's really only 2 towns in Pecos County, and that's Fort Stockton and Imperial. But like there's like Bakersfield and Sheffield, which I'm pretty sure like in Sheffield is like where the scene in No Country for Old Men where like the coin flip where he gets gas. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be in either Sheffield or Bakersfield because it's just a gas station kind of thing.
This episode is sponsored by Smith Iron and Design. It's owned and operated by one of my good friends, Aaron Smith, and his dad, Sonny. As the name implies, Smith Iron and Design specializes in creating custom metal and woodwork. They have a vast array of metal signs that are perfect wall decor that'll tie our room together. They design everything from welcome signs to family crests, flags, and Texas cutouts. They have a series of these metal wreaths that are perfect for your front door, and you are able to change them out depending on the season. Are you a sports fan? Well, there's nothing better than having a giant logo of your team on the wall of your den or office. When it comes to signage, the possibilities are really endless. What you should really do, though, is head over to smithironanddesign.com to get a look at their vast portfolio. That's smithironanddesign.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes as well. They don't just do signs either. Some of the smaller items are custom bottle openers and keychains. Then they also have bookshelves, TV stands, nightstands, and fire pits. You know, it was about a year ago, Aaron built me a custom shelf. I needed something new to store some of my vinyl, and everything I had come across, either the shelves weren't big enough for LPs, or it looked too bland or cheaply made, or, to be perfectly honest, too expensive. So I wound up talking with Aaron, and about a week later, I was able to pick up this custom shelf unit that's just been amazing. It's incredibly sturdy, has a bit of a rustic feel. In my opinion, one of the best parts was just having so much control in the process. You can get them as tall as you want with the shelves at the perfect depth and length. Again, for me, this was for storing vinyl, so they had to be a certain height and depth. I've been thinking about getting a custom bookshelf companion piece soon as well. Now, for the most part, they primarily serve the Lubbock area and the South Plains, but for some of their smaller pieces, they're able to ship nationwide as well. Again, smithironanddesign.com. Now back to the show.
I was gonna say though, is what movie or like TV show do you think captures West Texas the best?
Well, I would have to say it's kind of West Texas is such a wide-ranging term, right? I think you and I have even like talked on Twitter or something about this before. Like, there's some who would kind of say like, well, Lubbock is where West Texas and the Panhandle kind of blur, and you know, like Larry McMurtry has always considered Archer City and that area West Texas, and to me, like, it is West Texas, but it's way different than the Permian, you know, like that's
Absolutely.
Like the far reaches of the eastern part of it. But if you include that in your definition of West Texas, then for my money, HUD is like, it's a damn good movie. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's very authentic to the kind of people that I know. And it's honestly, it's like the question at the heart of that movie about, you know, taking your land and using it for running cattle and kind of keeping its integrity and basically selling it off to punch holes in it to suck as much oil as you can and, you know, putting pump jacks and lease roads and all that out there. I think that's a question that people are still debating on various levels. And so that movie to me really kind of gets at the heart of what West Texas is. What about you? Just out of curiosity.
I think like No Country for Old Men is like a lot of the West Texas I know. To go back on the what is West Texas, I think since that conversation, I feel like that conversation pops up every 6 months at least on Twitter.
Right.
But what I'm convinced of now is that like West Texas, the line is gradually moving west with every year because at one point, a lot of people said, West Texas begins somewhere between Dallas and Fort Worth. And that
Right.
was right for that time. But it's so different now. You mentioned Archer City. I know I was talking with Robert O'Keen one time, and he said he loved going out. Of course, he grew up in Houston, so he loved going out to West Texas to visit his grandma, I think. And she lived in, I think, Eden. So, like, he considered that as, like, West Texas. And obviously everything west. But, like, I think what it is like, as the population has gotten bigger and obviously urban sprawl, the line of West Texas is just moving further west. So, like, at one point, yeah, all those are correct. Because at some point, like, west, or the west was, I don't know, the Mississippi River or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I love No Country for Old Men. I still think there's like this aspect of Friday Night Lights that really captures a very specific West Texas, the television show specifically. Were you ever a fan of that?
So I watched the first season for Texas Monthly for a project we did, and I enjoyed it. I just never got around to finishing the series, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was, honestly, I was like really skeptical of it because in my mind it was like a pigskin Degrassi type of thing.
Right.
And like the fact that they filmed it in Pflugerville and around Austin really turned me off. I was like, it should have been filmed in Odessa, But I actually really enjoyed it from what I saw. I thought they did it was way closer to kind of a authentic feel than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Whenever I first heard about Friday Night Lights and, them filming down around Austin, I had the same reaction of like, well, that's not going to be real at all. What does Peter Berg know about
Right.
fucking West Texas? But they got some things right. Now, I do think, though, I'm always like a nitpicker of stuff like this. Like the movie Hell or High Water.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great movie, but there's some stuff that I'm like, that's off. That's way off, And it's mainly the driving times.
Yeah. Yep. They're going all over the place. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
well, didn't they film a lot of it in New Mexico too? I think like,
yeah, like a lot of these films get filmed in New Mexico simply because of, I guess like New Mexico has better
film incentives.
Yeah. Which I think with No Country for Old Men, they did film a bunch around Alpine and Marfa, and that was because Tommy Lee Jones convinced the Coen brothers to check the area out and stuff like that. And actually, the guy who, whenever Anton Chigurh comes up and like punches him with the cattle puncher thing,
Yep.
that guy is originally from Fort Stockton, and like the reason he got that job was because he had moved down to Alpine and was like the tour, like in charge of tourism for the city or some shit like that. And so he was showing the Coen brothers around and was showing them different locations, and they basically asked him if he had ever acted before and yada yada yada, and rest is history. So then it was just one of those things where he was Anton's first kill, and I think like he's quoted somewhere about like how seeing Javier Bardem come up, it was just the most intimidating person he had ever seen.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, he's like definitely one of the best villains ever depicted on screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My only problem with No Country, and it's something in the book too, is Carla Jean, Llewellyn's wife, says she works at Walmart. And they live in Sanderson, and there's not a Walmart in Sanderson, and the closest Walmart would have been Odessa Midland, because like the one in Fort Stockton wasn't there in '82. So that's like my only, maybe in Del Rio, but like that's still like such an impractical drive to either place.
Well, that, you know what? That's good fact checking there, Mooney.
Yeah, it's I'm calling out Cormac McCarthy, the best rider of our time, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
I wanted to go and transition into the Willie Nelson stuff. Obviously, Texas Monthly, y'all did a giant Willie Nelson birthday feature on where you guys ranked all the albums, 143 albums.
Yep.
First off, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, that you obviously listened to a bunch of these records and all that stuff and did a whole bunch of reading and all that kind of stuff. Did you listen to all 143 records?
I wish I could say that I did, but I did not listen to all 143. I think I listened to damn near every studio album. I didn't listen to all the live albums. I listened to a lot of them. And I listened to almost all of the collaborations that he did. I think I did get through all the soundtracks. There wasn't that many. Mm-hmm. But John Spong, the guy that really kind of headed the whole thing, he listened to every single album. And some of them were pretty hard to come by. I think the hardest was like some Third Man Record album that Willie did a few years back. Yeah. Apparently that one was really hard to find. And then there was some other that I can't remember off the top of my head. But they only sold it for a little while at some live shows. It was just like something they had thrown together, like out at Luck at some point. And it was, I can't remember what it came in ranked at, but it was higher than, quite a few of them. So no, I didn't listen to them all, but I listened to a shitload of Willie.
Yeah. Whenever I saw I guess I saw like the pre-post about it, like hey, this is what we're doing this week or something like that. And mm-hmm. At that point, I was convinced that Countryman was going to be the lowest ranked. And then like, it's in the bottom 10, I think, something like that, bottom 20 at least. And it just made me realize like, oh man, like he's got so many more records than
you can go lower than Countryman. Yeah. That, I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but that,
I have, yeah.
The Nashville Brass, Danny Davis and the Nashville Brass.
Oh, no, not that one. No,
I think that was our very lowest one. And it is it's a stinker.
Yeah.
But we did our best to kind of try to find a way to never hold Willie accountable in a way, because you don't want to, heap too much scorn on our patron saint. And often it usually was kind of like, it was clearly like a production decision that led to the problems, or it was a thing with the collaborators. Like he definitely turned in a lot of favors for the old guard, as they were kind of fading out. Yeah. And Willie's star was rising. He would just go into the studio with any of his old buddies, whether that was like a golfing buddy or someone pretty more well respected, and crank out these albums. And some of them are great. One of my favorite Willie albums is him and Roger Miller together, but then he has some others that you're just like, they're pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. What I guess like what I kind of, when I was looking through, and obviously I listened to a bunch of records after that was posted, and just thinking about it, it's really interesting how Willie Nelson, you could really kind of say like there's like 4 or 5 different careers in there. There's 4 or 5 different versions of Willie, but somehow still the same Willie Nelson throughout. What was like the most surprising record that you came across that you were like, oh, I had no idea this was a thing?
Oh man, that's kind of, let me kind of, you might have to trim this down a little bit. Yeah. For me to think. The one that just came, like, I might have to give you a couple answers to get my mind right. But the very first one that comes to mind was I had listened to The Sound in Your Mind before, but I hadn't really like fully like locked into it and kind of like there's a lot of different ways to kind of listen to a record, right? And it's kind of like there's a lot of different ways to read a text, and there's all these different forms of criticism, whether it's cultural criticism or gender criticism or sexual criticism, whatever you want to approach a text at. And the same kind of goes for Willie. You can think about, well, what is he saying? What is the music doing? And what's happening in his life at the time? And The Sound in Your Mind is just, it's just a freaking great record from the beginning to the end. But what I found really cool about it is that, to me, that's the first time that you hear Willie's roots, where Willie is at right now as a live band, and where he's going to go as an artist is like all right there. And it's just like, it's just so good. Like that Lucky Old Sun is maybe my favorite Willie's vocal performance. And then I'd Have to Be Crazy. Steve Fromholz wrote that song.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's this one part on the third verse where he'd gone into the studio to help Willie with the phrasing. And so he was sitting in the studio with Willie while Willie sang, and Steve just started singing the verse a little ahead of, you know, Willie was always kind of behind the time a little bit. And so Steve started singing, and it almost sounds like a mistake. The first time you listen to it, you're like, did they forget to, like, what's happening? But then, like, the more you listen to it, it's like adds this like weird kind of magic to the track. I read that they recorded that song like 4 more times without Steve in the studio, and they ended up going with that one because it worked. And Willie's also producing that. It's the same band, same studio, same arrangement with the record label that he had made Red-Headed Stranger. So while I love Red-Headed Stranger, like, I don't know how you couldn't, to be honest, but you know, that's a very tight concept album, very specific sound. And The Sound in Your Mind is like a kind of more like, it's just Willie being Willie. So that's a very long-winded answer, but that one was really one that just, I did know about it, so I don't want to say it was like completely surprising, but I didn't love it the same way that I do now. And then just to follow up, I won't make it quite as long, but Tougher Than Leather is another album that I had completely underrated for a long time. And that one to me is like just a genius record.
Yeah. That record right there to me, I guess like what's so, in my opinion, so essential about Tougher Than Leather is that this is obviously a time where records are supposed to have singles, and that's like a record of not singles. That's a record, you know?
Definitely not. I think they released a Little Old Fashioned Karma, and I think that was it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was like a, you know, revolutionary at the time or anything like that, or even you would even consider it revolutionary now, but to me that's such a key to that record of like, you know, we didn't just add a single for the sake of like, hey, we need a single on this, you know. And so many records, obviously, you try and put a single on because that's obviously what kind of spearheads a record. But
yeah, I mean, we kind of give him credit all the time for being the original Outlaw and all that, but it's, again, kind of to go back to one of our previous parts of our conversation about like the stereotype, but the stereotype being based on something true. And for Willie, he's done his own thing over and over and over again in many different ways. Like, it's not just like, you know, it's not just sticking his finger up to the establishment. He's just kind of done a lot of things his own way with his career that's really pretty admirable. And I mean, on Tougher Than Leather too, like, I think he doesn't get the same type of credit say like Terry Allen does for Juarez, that is such a crazy concept record. Like you're moving through time, you're moving between characters. And I mean, Tougher Than Leather is about reincarnation. And yet it's like it makes the listener take the leap. You know, it's not very explicit about what it's doing. And it was one of those records that I had to listen to, read the back of the record and really dive into. Like you can't just like put it on in the background and feel what Willie's doing with it. It's one that demands your attention. And when you give it, the reward is great. Just like I think the best listening experience I've ever had in my life was the first time I gave my full attention to Juarez and read the lyrics as the album played. I was just like, holy shit, this is better than any work of literature besides maybe like Ulysses that I've ever experienced. So I think Tougher Than Leather, maybe not quite as genius as Juarez, but it's up there for sure, and definitely doesn't get the credit that I think Willie deserves for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember who I was talking with the other day, but I think like the thing the worst thing you can do to your fan base or fans in general, a listener, is to underestimate their capacity to understand what you're trying to say. So many times it feels like artists will essentially dumb down stuff just to make it lowest common denominator. And I think that like there's something to those songs that are just universal, right? But I think like underestimating your audience can just be like a horrible thing to do. Like you don't have to, you don't have to like dumb it down just to make it a populist record.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, I don't know how well that one sold, but it's like in his catalog, it's one of like the best albums, I think. So I'm glad he didn't try to dumb it down. And it does do a lot of the same thing as Redheaded Stranger as far as like the recurring motifs and, you know, these interludes, and oh man, it's just so good. Mm-hmm. It's great, but it is very non-commercial. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. One of the things too about Willie that I think is kind of an interesting thing is he'll have like he would have like a breakthrough with something like Stardust. And then there's like a couple of records that are like not necessarily full-blown attempts. They're not said that they're, you know, attempts to follow that up, but they're like they follow the same game plan. Mm-hmm. And he'll do that he did that every once in a while. You know, you mentioned obviously with the Tougher Than Leather kind of not necessarily being a Redheaded Stranger sequel or anything like that, but it's kind of in a lot of ways the same game plan. You know, he would do that with I guess like I feel like a lot of the 90s stuff was in the same way. Like after he kind of went like Southwestern in a lot of ways, like the Spirit and stuff like that. I feel like those are like almost like desert records in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Spirit definitely does feel like a desert record. And that is, I mean, that one's, I think it's harder to say that one's underrated, but, yeah, that is one of those that I think that maybe a casual Willie Nelson listener, which it's kind of weird. Like, as I talked about this list with other people, people that have, you know, pretty great depth of knowledge when it comes to music, and they love and appreciate Willie, but they really haven't, like, I guess when your discography is 143 albums deep, it's actually pretty hard to go more than surface level in some ways. But yeah, like Spirit is a great one, but yeah, it is kind of like you can chop up his discography and kind of like rearrange them by there's like a few different types, I think. And some are by decade, but some are like over time. Like in the same vein as Stardust, there's quite a few of those jazz standards, American classic. He covered Gershwin, you know.
Right.
Then you also have like a few Django albums, you know, where he's the Django Reinhardt style is like kind of at the forefront. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is one of those. And then the concept albums, like, yeah, and of course his gospel albums, he definitely had like, he has so many flavors that he can put down that are like, it's just incredible that one dude can just go from, I mean, maybe not successfully into reggae, but he can move between George Gershwin to Bob Wills to Tin Pan Alley and Frank Sinatra, and it all sounds so good. Like, I really can't think of an artist who has written as many of his own standards, but has also covered other people's standards, like songs that were well known,
Right.
songs that like there was a guy or gal that sang that song, and then Willie did it and kind of made it his own all over again. Like that in itself would have been an incredible career, but the fact that he did that while also writing all these original songs, while also being a pretty damn good guitarist, as far as like country guitarist goes, he's an exceptional guitarist in many ways. So he really does have like all these different sides. And that was what's partially so fun is if you think you're going to listen to, I don't know what the actual final number of albums I listened to is, but, you know, I spent a good chunk of time listening to him, but it didn't get old because there's so much variety in there. Like, he did a couple albums with Wynton Marsalis, the trumpeter from New Orleans, and one of those records, Two Men with the Blues, I really like that record. The rest of the committee, not so much, but I thought it's a perfect record for like when you're washing the dishes, you want to listen to something not quite country, you know, something kind of upbeat. That record fits perfectly for that very certain mood. And so, yeah, I mean, there's almost like a Willie Nelson record for any occasion, any time. And while we're talking about it, I mean, I think a lot of people are quick to dismiss his RCA records, the Liberty records that he made before he you know, did his whole thing moving to Austin and telling Nashville to fuck off. But there's a lot of good music in that too, strings and all. Like, The Willie Way is a damn good record. And, you know, if you're the type of person that likes classic country, which I grew up on it and I still listen to it quite a bit, like some of those early Willie records are right up there with George Jones and Ernest Tubb. And in fact, the Texas Troubadours were on, I can't remember which album it is right now off the top of my head, but they were the backing band on one of his early records. So it's definitely worth exploring those early records.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to bring up the whole him, I guess what I would call it being confident in I guess he was so confident in his own ability as a songwriter that he was unafraid to cover other people. And just like if it's a good song or if he enjoys it, hey, well, I'll cut it too. You know what I mean? Because, you know, there is obviously like the Sings Christofferson, and there's like the Too Lefty from Willie and things like that. And of course, like some of his biggest hits, Whiskey River. You mentioned the Fromholtz song, and then of course like Poncho and Lefty. Things like that are just, you think of them almost as Willie Nelson songs, even though they've been cut by the original songwriter, and then obviously in a lot of ways with Christofferson made popular by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
that's a really good point about him having the confidence in his own songs, that maybe that did kind of free him up to do these others and to go at them the way he did, because I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest, but I like it.
Well, one thing I was going to ask was, did you guys like weigh solo records over collaborations? Was that a part of it or anything?
I think we would kind of give some weight. Yeah, so we were considering a lot of different things. Like one of the things that we were trying to keep in mind was the time, like the chronology. So, I mean, there were so many great 70s records, but you don't want them all just like stacked right there together, right? And so there was a little bit of like, okay, well, like what's, and not to say that we went just based on any one factor, right? There was just multiple factors to consider. So when you're trying to think about Redheaded Stranger versus Phases and Stages, like the fact that Phases and Stages is all Willie Nelson, that's all his song. Those are all his songs. Like that gives it a slight edge in our book, at least, over Redheaded Stranger, which I think there was Bandera and Denver are the only two originals on that record. Doesn't mean it's any less great. It just means like we gave the weight for the ranking slightly to the originals. And then as far as like the collaborations, I do think that I think the highest one was Old Friends with Roger Miller. It might have been Pancho and Lefty.
I'm looking right now, and it's
okay.
Waylon and Willie at 11.
Which one is that?
With Waylon.
Wanted the Outlaws?
No, it's Waylon and Willie, just the one with him and Waylon.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah. So that was the one that, yeah, I mean, and that's a classic. That's just a purely classic album. So
I guess Pancho and Lefty's 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like Old Friends like 20 or something?
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean those,
you don't have
and
all
those
these,
are
memorized?
I mean, I don't also think you can really name another artist almost in any genre that has had as many successful collaborations as Willie, because I mean, him and Leon, that was a great pairing. Him and Merle throughout their entire careers, pretty much, that was a great pairing. I mean, just you kind of see it over and over again. And I think that speaks to probably kind of going back to your earlier point, like he has the confidence in himself as an artist and as a songwriter, and also just he's like a chill dude. So he seems to be able to get along with anyone who's not an asshole. And I mean, the guy has a freaking international hit with Julio Iglesias, you know, or is it Julio or?
Yeah, it's Julio.
Yeah, Julio.
Yeah. That's, I've not thought about that song in a minute, but, yeah, one of the other, I guess, questions I was going to have as far as like a specific, if you had an answer, was like, what was like your, I don't know, like your biggest loss, like as far as like you went up to bat for this one record that that others were just like, it's not as good as you think it is.
Oh man, that's like funny. That happened several times, I would say. Well, I might actually throw you a little bit of a curveball answer on this. I wanted Texas in My Soul lower than it is, because to me, some would say that's his first concept album because it's all songs about Texas. And I think my biggest issue with it is that I have such high expectations of a Willie Nelson album that is all about Texas. And then you listen to that record, and apart from a few songs, it is just like a garbage, like, you know, the Hemisphere, whenever they were celebrating the celebration in Texas of its anniversary, and they did all this shit in San Antonio. It sounds like a freaking Chamber of Commerce PR freaking campaign for Texas. Definitely a Chet Atkins, you know, written all over it. And it's just such a disappointing record when it's Willie's only album really dedicated to Texas. And so I was like, dude, this album sucks. And I was Yeah, a lot of the other guys on the committee, including Robert O'Keen, I think he called me a titty baby for that opinion. So I ended up clawing it down a couple of notches, I think, but it's still, in the scheme of things, it still got a higher ranking than I would give it personally.
Yeah, it's 31 on here.
Yeah, that's way too damn high.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like you would have to get into arguments about what the ranking is. Like with that many records, it's not like a 10 record where the lowest you're going to go is 10. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about with that being so looked upon as being a high record for you or for them, and obviously not you.
Well, me and one other guy were the youngest gentlemen on this committee. I'm pretty sure, and I think there's also a little bit of the other part of how you can approach a record is your own personal connection to it. And so, if you're a high schooler when Poncho and Lefty comes out in the 80s and that's like your jam, you're going to have a certain like attachment to it. And I think that Texas in My Soul had a little bit more sentimentality for some of the other folks. And so my first experience with it was about maybe 5 or so years ago. I was trying to think of songs that we could replace our terrible state song with. And when I saw Texas in My Soul by Willie Nelson, I was like, damn, there's bound to be a song on this that would just be our new anthem. And then I listened to the whole album and I was just like disgusted. It's like they had him read the William Barrett Travis letter at the Alamo and shit. Like, it's just cheesy. And, I wish he would, I would love for him to do like an album now of just like actually good Texas centric songs. That would be pretty cool. And I'm sure if you probably like rounded up every song he ever did throughout his catalog about Texas, you could do that, but I don't know. Still disappointed in that record.
Yeah. One of the other questions I was going to ask is the modern Willie Nelson. Did you feel any, specifically for you, did you feel any recency bias or like in either way, like either this is a new record and Willie's kind of in recent years had a little bit of a revival, or did you feel that you quickly dismissed stuff from this past decade?
Yeah, that's a really good question, I think. And I think it's a kind of a bit of a mixed answer, because the fact that he just turned 87 and he's still writing some great songs is just, honestly, it's, we could all be so lucky, he's outlived all of these guys, like, and the fact that he's still doing it is honestly incredible, and is just, man, Willie Nelson. There's a reason why he's a hero. And so there is a bit of just like admiration for that, I think. But then from like a critical standpoint, I find some of the new songs just a little bit phoned in a way that is, I don't know how much to blame Buddy Cannon, the producer, or if that's just like, but I feel like the guys could use an editor every once in a while, because they just have some of these cheesy ass songs that I'm like, do y'all find it funny, or is it just, am I missing the joke or something like that? And so there is a little bit of just like, they're not always like as consistent as some of the great records, but they have some great songs on them. Like the Mortality trilogy, I thought had some pretty beautiful ruminations on kind of one's life, death, and what comes after. And I think they're pretty stunning, where they're good. Maybe if you took like the best of those and made 2 albums, instead of like 3 with all these others that are kind of fluff. I think they would be like more solid records overall, but at the same time, who the hell am I to say anything to an 80-plus-year-old Willie Nelson who's doing whatever the hell he wants and always has? So as far as the rankings go, I think that, like I kind of alluded to earlier, there was multiple factors that we were considering. And I personally, his latest Ride Me Back Home, that was one of those records that I liked quite a bit and wanted to push a little bit higher, but I think we ended up going with God's Problem Child, or one of the albums from the Mortality trilogy ended up kind of taking a higher ranking than that one did. But I mean, his covers of Immigrant Song on that and My Favorite Picture of You are some of my favorite covers he's done in the last 2 decades or more. So he's still making really good music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the editor aspect is very, if there's one thing to be critical with Willie, it is that, because look at simply the case that he has 143 records.
Yeah.
You know, there's records that it's hard to call them filler or records with filler material, but you know, there's some, and I think this is a criticism for a lot of people, is that sometimes people put out 14 song records where there's like a good 10 song record in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I feel like I guess I have like a lot of mixed feelings about, old man records. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where like some of them are so, I think like Leonard Cohen made really great records, even in his very, you know, last days. But then some people, you're just like, oh man, what happened? Because like I don't know if it's like trying to find former glory, and there's, I guess, like it's not even necessarily old men or old artists. Sometimes it's like you see this right now with a whole lot of people in the who are really big in the 90s, like 90s country artists who are trying to make records that they don't know what lane they're trying to get into. If they're trying to revive the 90s neo-traditional, or if they're going to go in and just jump into doing a bro country record. So it's, I don't know if that feels like you're lost out there at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also kind of depends on what type of record you're going for, because like Leonard Cohen was basically creating like art records every time, like that they're like almost like books of poetry, and I don't think that's ever really been, even though there's a lot of poetry in Willie Nelson's stuff, like he's covering honky tonk songs, he's kind of like just having a good time, and I think his records kind of have a lot of that feel overall. But yeah, there's like the Loretta Lynn's of the world who make these beautiful albums way late in life. And I mean, I think that there's definitely is a bit of filler on some of the Johnny Cash American recordings, but that is something that I kind of wish had happened or could still happen to Willie, as far as just like that pairing with Rick Rubin and Johnny Cash did produce some honestly incredible songs. I mean, just things that I still listen to, and I'm glad that I can hear Johnny Cash do some of those songs at that age with that voice, all of those things. You know, I think it adds something to it. And I think Willie's, like, the closest that I can think of off the top of my head to that is probably Heroes. You know, he had a lot of kind of like contemporary covers, and like The Scientist to me is a damn good cover. I never would have thought that Willie doing Coldplay would be good, but I think it's pretty damn good. I think it was actually recorded for a Chipotle commercial for the Super Bowl that year. And they were like, can we stick this on the album? And they had to like go through all these rights and stuff, but they ended up putting it on. But that's why you can't listen to it on Spotify, because probably like Chipotle copyright TM whatever has like the the rights to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that with Willie, you're gonna get kind of like he's always done it. Like whatever he feels like doing, I'm gonna write a song about you're like bad breath, or it's better to have bad breath than no breath at all. To me, that's a song I never needed to hear. But maybe there's a bunch of, folks out there that like, that's just the best way to think about it, isn't it, Willie? So, I maybe they're out there and loving every song that Willie puts out. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to have the entire, like all the stats for Spotify on the Willie to see how many of like these songs are actually being played, or if it's obviously with anyone, it's going to be like the greatest hits. But I wonder if there's songs that are just like in the teens, even. I don't know. One of the things I was going to also ask you about with this is, I think a lot of people going into this would think that Redheaded Stranger was going to be number one. Obviously, it's number two. Did you guys get a whole bunch of like blowback or anything like that from that?
Oh man, we got some for sure. I can't remember exactly how he put it, but there was some digs online that made me laugh out loud. As far as just like California bumpkins can't even tell that the greatest country record ever made is obviously the greatest Willie record ever made. And mostly though, I am happy to say it was mostly pretty like lighthearted, digs. Maybe it's just because Willie tends to attract that kind of like passionate but also playful following that we didn't have. Just people like, there were no death threats that I know of over our decision not to put Redheaded Stranger number one. So, which I can tell you, after writing a story about that state song, I didn't get exactly a death threat, but I did get a few, some helpful eviction notices from the state of Texas. They were people that wanted me out of here. So, yeah, I guess people are more precious about our state song than they are about Willie albums. But yeah, honestly, listening and reading some of the blowback was kind of fun because that's part of the whole point of it, right? It's like, it's a list, like it doesn't mean anything other than some people got together and tried their best to take their own biases and their own information and their own appreciation of this artist and come up with some sort of way of like, organizing this thing and kind of also, the part of the point was not just to be like piss people off about what we put at number 10 and what we put at number 100, but we wanted to give Willie's life story kind of a template that would be honestly fun, like something you can listen to, you can skip around in. And if you read the whole list, which God bless you, it's like 30,000 words or something, you basically get a Willie Nelson biography and a lot of little tangents about his collaborators and what different things were going on in his life. And I learned a lot reading the other people's, the other writers' reviews, because I didn't deep dive into all the albums I listened to. It would be a very long undertaking, but so that was fun just to kind of like find these little interesting tidbits about Willie throughout the whole thing. And he's just, dude, I mean, I don't know if you've read his biography with, can't remember the guy's name, Ritzkoff, I think maybe. It's a long story, but I don't know. He's just he's a winning character. I'll say that. He's a good one. I kind of hope I never meet him because I feel like we need to have like, I at least feel like personally I need heroes. And the older I've gotten, the harder it's been to keep heroes because you realize everyone's human, everyone's flawed, and not to say that heroes can't be flawed because that then you wouldn't have any at all. But, and not to say that Willie doesn't have them either, but I think he's a pretty good guy to kind of look up to in various ways, whether it's his approach to life or his approach to art and friendship. But yeah, that's part of what makes it so fun, is because like when you actually like the person you're writing about and the person that you're spending all this time trying to do something for, and it's someone that you do feel, like you want to like do him justice while without, worshiping him without the proper criticism, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. It's funny about like lists in general is people will always throw up that art is subjective. And I'm always like, yes, it absolutely is. It is like everyone has an opinion on an artist. But when something comes up to ranking, like I think you understand fully that the list is absolutely arbitrary. It's just like it doesn't really matter. But if you're going to do it, go ahead and take it seriously.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
That's anytime I've ever kind of done anything like that, it's like I realize that rating anything is stupid at the end of the day. But if you're going to do it, take it seriously at least. So
no, that's a great way to put it, because I think like it doesn't mean anything to Willie or how you listen to his record, what we said, where it is in our list. But it is like, if you're trying to figure out more about him, it is a way, it is a tool, it's a resource. And it's also fun. I mean, it's fun to argue about these things. And, as far as Texas Monthly goes, like, it's good for people to come and read the site. And when you say like, well, here's 30,000 words about Willie Nelson, people may not jump on that the way that they're like, well, what the hell did they put, Poncho and Lefty at? So
right.
It's, it's got its ulterior motives as well, but I think those are fairly understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has had a massive impact on the music industry and on our daily lives at large. The Blue Light has been closed for nearly 2 months now, and if you're like me, you're probably jonesing for some live music, perhaps a Lone Star beer or a round of burn shots from your favorite bartender. If you're truly missing the place, there are 2 things you can do. For starters, Lubbock songwriter Charlie Stout and 49 other songwriters have come together for a 50-song compilation called Monday Night Lights. It's 50 demo-style recordings for $50, where all the proceeds will be going to furloughed bar staff at Blue Light Live. All you have to do is head over to mondaynightlights.com. You'll be getting songs from the likes of Josh Abbott and Wade Bowen and William Clark Green, to up-and-comers like Slade Coulter and Morgan Rutherford, to Blue Light singer-songwriter competition winners like Juliet McConkey, Isaac Hoskins, and Kenneth O'Meara. You'll recognize a whole lot of people on this list, just too many to name right here. Trust me when I say you will want to get Monday Night Lights. It's just an incredible collection of incredible songwriters. There's also some pretty cool limited edition poster prints that Charlie has for sale on the site, where those proceeds will obviously be going to bar staff as well. And we will probably end up having some other cool items listed on mondaynightlights.com as well pretty soon. Again, mondaynightlights.com. We've already raised a good chunk of money so far. We're super proud of how this all came together and proud of how many people have shared the compilation and everything. But as you know, more can always help. And of course, head over to bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab. They have koozies and t-shirts and caps. I swear, if you put on a Blue Light cap and a t-shirt, it almost feels like you're there if you close your eyes, especially if you've already thrown on the Monday Night Lights compilation. Okay, back to the episode.
You mentioned Terry just a minute ago about Juarez and stuff. I wanted to end on this. Juarez came out in 75, and I don't know, like that record right there is almost, I don't know, like the older I get, the more I think that record's actually better than Lubbock on everything. But I've had like, I don't know, like I've had mixed feelings on Juarez over the years. Not like anything horrible, but at times I think like, did he actually succeed at what he did or what he was trying to search for in his mind for what Juarez was? And I'll throw it out to you. Like, do you think he succeeded in what Juarez is supposed to be?
Man, that's a good question. This is one of those answers that's just going to come off the top of my brain when we hang up. I might think of something else that I wish I would have said instead. But to me, I think Juarez is a piece of like art with a capital A. And part of what makes something like that level of art is like this ineffable quality that is like, without like trying to get too high-minded or anything like that, it's like almost indescribable. It's like there's these elements of intangibility about it that I don't think you can say like, did he like necessarily succeed at what he set out to do? Because when I listen to that record, I kind of find something different almost every time. And it's always kind of like, it feels messy and it feels unfinished and whole at the same time. And it's like, it's raw in a way to me that very, very few, and I'm talking about really good songwriters that I love and admire. Like, I don't think that they've really even approximated what Juarez does in overall. Like, do I think it's perfect? Probably not. Like, is it the best music? It's kind of hard to put on just a single from that sometimes. It's not. It's not a lot of things, I would say. But what it is like this, like almost unapproachable record to me. And not to say that it's beyond criticism by any means. I don't think that at all. But I do think it's just one of these works of art that probably does more than what Terry set out to do. And it's probably beyond his intentions and his motivations and its own thing, at least that's kind of what I think whenever I think about Juarez, is just this like kind of, that is the lightning flash. That's the time that you actually get to see it. And for better and for worse, it's still lightning.
Yeah. It's with any record, the more you listen to a record, the more you understand. But, and it's naive to think like you can listen to a record one time and get what's happening on this record. The thing about Juarez that I feel is that, it's like going into a dark cave, and every time like your lantern like lasts a little bit longer than before. And it's because it is a very, like you said, like you can't just put a single on. It's very hard to listen to in the background or just as it's almost like if you tell someone to listen to it, you have to prep them on like how to listen to it in a way.
Right.
Where Lubbock on Everything, even though it's that's a monster double platter record, 21 songs. In some ways, that's so much easier to digest. Where, like, I guess like with a lot of, like with Lubbock on Everything, you can listen to that on two different levels. You can listen to it on a very just topical level of, I fucking love Amarillo Highway, right? You can do all that, right? Or you can like listen to it on a level of trying to find what Terry was talking about with Lubbock and art and the love-hate relationship. I feel like with Juarez, it's almost like exclusively you have to listen to it on a deep level, like conceptual level.
Yeah. I really liked what you said about the lantern, kind of seeing a little bit more further. and totally agree with you on the other points as well. It's like you're not always in the mood for that hefty and that heavy of a meal, but when you're hungry and you're like you said, you've kind of prepped for it, like it's hard to, like, you could have tons of other meals that would never approach that one. Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about what he does on Dogwood, for instance, like we were talking earlier about not underselling your listener. And the fact that he goes, like, okay, first of all, it's not just about Jesus, it's about the fucking tree that they carved into the cross. So he's already pulling like a freaking like Max Lucado, like putting you as this tree that gets taken up on the Golgotha plain, which, I mean, how many country singers from Lubbock or anywhere else have ever put down the freaking plane that Jesus was crucified on? And then you end on it on the back of a motorcycle with a Pachuco, like that imagination is like, I just don't know if I know of any, like, of anything on that level. And it's definitely not the thing that I'm going to listen to every day. But when I want to listen to Dogwood, there's nothing that I can, like, substitute for that experience or that, like, that level of just I don't know. It's kind of beyond me. And the whole album has moments like that, like, Cortez's Sail, whenever you're all of a sudden you're a conquistador, and he's talking about the generations of violence that are manifest in the soil and are basically, he's kind of talking about genetics and inherited violence and all these things, and yet it's just like this plodding, simple, piano driven song. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the hell, like, I don't know how the hell that album exists and the way it came together, but it is one of those things that, like, I mean, I could talk to you about that album for forever, because it is just something that's stunning work of art to me.
Yeah, I guess you've talked to Terry before, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay, so, like, I don't know, like, it's interesting talking to him to put him as, like, a real person, because in a lot of ways, like, what, he comes in this art world that is so, I guess that you think of him moving to California and wanting to be an artist, and then, like, getting into these highbrow art scenes and realizing that, like, maybe those people are, I don't know, full of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And
yeah.
wanting to please them on some level, but then also realizing, like, not necessarily the like having some kind of, like, outsider complex or anything like that, but also realizing, like, being very just down to earth and gritty is what's actually real. And, like, these, I don't know, like, there's something very much where it feels like Terry kind of talks in both languages at certain points. And I don't know, like, it's weird to think of, like, Terry as someone younger than myself. Like, I think, like, Juarez came out when he was, like, 30 or so. So it's very hard to sometimes think of these people as being anything other than a 70-year-old man or a 65 or whatever. You know what I mean? I think,
Sure,
like, Terry's
yeah.
like 77, I think, now. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot in what you just said. And I mean, not to try to unpack it all, but, like, there when I saw that video of him playing Redbird way early on in his youth.
Like the Shindig video. Yeah.
What's that?
The Shindig video.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
There's a fire there that's already like evident, and I don't think there's that same like highbrow art thing. Probably he hasn't acquired that yet, and that's something that he would pick up later on. But there's already something like just kind of like mercurial in that performance to me. And then when he does go to LA and he has this whatever experiences, like I don't know his biography deeply, and I haven't spent a whole lot of time talking to him, so he's kind of an enigma on some levels to me. I've looked at a lot of his art and listened to his records, but I've never like tried to take a deep dive into who Terry is. But I do think the one thing that is like very consistent about him is that Lubbock and West Texas / the Panhandle has informed who he is the entire time, whether he's making art or making music or whatever. And yeah, I mean, he is the nicest guy. Like when I have like met him face to face, it's been, I definitely don't feel like I'm hanging out with the guy that like wrote Juarez. You know what I mean? I just feel like I'm hanging out with like this kind of badass older dude from Lubbock, Texas. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that to kind of like pull it all together, in a way is like Terry is authentically that grit and some of the mythos of West Texas and that area, but he also claws at it and also like, shines a light on the shit, on the pimples, on the drug abuse and the sadness, but also like the kind of greatness in a way that's almost hard to take away. And in much like Willie Nelson, except in a very different route, he has given the middle finger to the art establishment and the art world, and while also succeeding at their game, I mean, he has sculptures in airports all across the country and has statues at everywhere from Tech to California. And I think there's like one on, maybe it's not Wall Street, but somewhere up Fancy Pants, New York or something. And I mean,
yeah,
he's built this incredible career, but he's done it while staying himself. And I mean, as a married man myself, I also really greatly admire him and Joe Harvey's relationship and the relationship he seems to have with his son, which Willie doesn't have as good of a track record with his former spouses, but he does have a very tight-knit family, and there's like a obvious love there. And that's, again, the myth of the destructive artist, that you have to be a complete piece of shit to create anything worthwhile. I can't buy into that because I refuse to do that to the people that I love. So
right.
It's people like Terry and Willie that kind of give me some of that hope that, okay, well, I can still write something worthwhile, and still, be a good husband and a good friend and a good brother, all those things.
Yeah. The romanticism of being of like Townsend guy and that generation of songwriter, Hank Williams, being where you have to suffer to make great art is such like you said, it's just bullshit. But when you're 16 to 25, typically you think like, oh, well, they felt more than I did. You know what I mean? Like they lived more. And I don't think that's necessarily true. The older I've gotten, the more I don't think like that is necessary to make great art.
I 100% agree. And I think suffering can lead to great art, but it definitely doesn't have to. And I think what leads to great art most of the time is hard work. It's getting up in the morning and doing the thing that's boring or that you don't want to do. That's one thing that guy did do over time is he was the workman, like he got up and crafted songs and guitars. And Towns got up and drank, like he happened to be a brilliantly gifted poet, but he sure left a lot of wreckage, in his wake. And we can't all do that. The world would be a terrible place. So I'm thankful for the workmen and workwomen who do get up and do the work. And I think that's what produces in the long run, that's how you have a consistent, good career. And that's something that I'm still working on,
Yeah. It's, yeah, I know like Terry has talked about, not to name drop, but when I did that interview with him and Kurt, he talked about,
which was awesome, by the way.
Thank you. Terry talked about like you have to have a space, what he called a studio. I think like Kurt was calling it his man cave, but his studio that you have to have like a space to be present in, that you go to on a regular basis and be just present in the moment to capture whatever idea that is that you turn into whatever piece of art you're doing. And I think like sometimes people think of artists as structured, but I think it takes a lot of structure to create these moments. So it's something that's very, very hard to do, because I'm not that I'm an artist or anything, but like it's hard to sometimes do all the to take all this as a actual job when it's so easy to not.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, and this is just something I admire about you. Like you've taken the initiative to like do this podcast and like really like it's not like Lubbock is a known outpost of journalism and you're out there doing it. And that's vitally important, and I think that you should get kudos for doing it out there and for doing it so well as well. Like it's not easy, whether you're at home during a pandemic or life as normal. Like there's a million other things that can like get in the way of that structure and just having to do the work, and you're doing it. And so I know I'm really grateful that you are.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's been really, really great talking with you about West Texas and Terry and Willie and Boomtown, and we'll have to have like another one in a couple of months or something about that, just about Terry.
That would be fun, man. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, these are some of my favorite things. So, yeah, and I mean, Friday night during the pandemic, what else are you going to do but drink a beer and talk about the stuff you love? So I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, thanks for checking out episode 90 of New Slang. Be sure to check out Boomtown, as well as episode sponsors Smith Iron and Design, The Blue Light Live, and MondayNightLights.com. Okay, we'll see you later in the week.